Wacky world of songwriting at Creative Vets. All right. Today, we're going to talk about rhythm. We're going over the 10 songwriting elements. We've been doing that for a while. This is the 8th, maybe, or 7th or 8th episode in this endeavor. So that you veterans out there would have a reference when we go over our songs, which we normally do. We deconstruct songs, hit songs, to see why are they hits. And so I realized that we needed to have some sort of background, some sort of base knowledge about songwriting. So I'm doing a series of basic songwriting lectures, and we've been moving along into the 10 elements, which are, we'll name them down, concept, genre, very important, the lyric elements, and we've gone through all the lyric elements, meaning the physical, emotional, symbolic, and conclusive elements of songwriting. Those are all the lyric elements. Then we get into form, development. We've done all that in previous episodes, which you can see on creativevets.org. I think they have the back issues there. And they also have it on the YouTube channel, the Creative Vets YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to. And isn't that wonderful? And so, so there we are. And so we're at development, and then we have rhythm, line rhythm specifically, which is today's lecture. And then rhyme will be coming next. And then melodies, chords, and texture. That's 10. So we are halfway through, and we're hitting on rhythm today. So I was waiting a little while to see if someone comes on board. Usually a couple of people say hello to me. So we'll wait for them to kind of get the signal. And in the meantime, let me just pitch creativevets.org is a wonderful organization which needs your help. So you vets out there that are wanting to be songwriters, and especially those that have had difficulties with post-traumatic stress and so forth because of your war experience, these songwriting lessons, actually, the original reason for doing all this was to help veterans transfer their combat mentality, combat brain, into a creative brain, and learning how to vent their experiences. And therefore, hi Nina, what's going on? Okay, you're here a little bit today. Well, that's okay. A little bit's better than not at all. Okay? Appreciate it. So that's what we're doing, is we're helping to vent and cathartic experience is the word I was looking for. Transfer that combat military mentality into doctor appointments. Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, go into from your combat into your creative, and in doing so, we help our healing process. Right. So that's why we're here. That's the underlying, the underpinning reason why we're here. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start today's magical mystery tour. All right. Here's Kyle. Hey, Kyle. How you doing? Glad you're on board. Good to have you with us. So let's go ahead and start with this rhythm thing. Now, what I'm talking about today is the rhythm of a line. So, let's take the song Yesterday, has a particular line rhythm. So it goes, yesterday, it's 3 syllables. Next line. The trouble seems so far away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 syllables in that next line. So that's what I call line rhythm, right? So we have a rhythm of a song. There's a rhythm going down, and it's going on. But we're talking about the rhythm of the lyric and the melody, right? So we're specifically talking about line rhythm. So the rhythm of the lyric, which of course is also going to be the rhythm of the music as well. So to get into line rhythm, let's go over our, and these are important, let's go over our basic tools. Other than our spark and our lightning at the moment that we're creating, that's, after all, that's the most important thing, isn't it? Is that spark and that creative juice that we're having when we're sitting down to write. But the tools that we have to use once that electricity has been applied to the page and to our guitar, once that's happened, we have what? Let's review. We have original detail mixed in with our generic detail, because we can't have, everything can't be totally original. We rely on generic, sophomoric, and cliche lyric to bring in an audience and to be, for have them to be familiar. We want to talk about similar things that everybody knows, right? But we want some original detail mixed in. So original detail, contrast, and contrast can happen in all the elements, all the 10 elements. Contrast can happen in all those 10 elements that I just told you a little while ago. And repetition. Repetition. Hey, repetition. Yeah. Repetition. So what we're talking about with line rhythm has a lot to do with contrast and repetition. A lot to do with it, okay? So I just wanted to tell you that's what we'll be doing today, is talking about contrast and repetition, right? Contrast and repetition and original detail. All those things create interest. And we're always wanting, remember, we want that, we call this the arc of interest, right? Rather than the arc of the plot, which is something we would do if we were writing a novel. In music, we have arc of interest because of all the elements that are involved in songwriting, right? We've got melody, chords, line rhythm, rhyme, story, what form it's in, what style of development. We've got all these things. So it's really the arc of interest, and we want it to continue to rise and rise and rise and rise until the end of the song, and then we can drop it just a little bit, right? Yeah. So this is what we're looking for, is a constant rise in the interest of the listener. Okay? So line rhythm. In stories, we have what you might want to call open line rhythm. And what I mean by that is, when you're telling a story, we don't necessarily count syllables, okay? So if our line is dump-a-dump-a-dump-a-dump, but dump-a-dump-a-dump-a-dump, the man goes out to see his dog. I don't have to have the next line, but dump, but dump, but dump, but dump. The only thing I have to have to keep that consistent, keep the top line consistent with the bottom, if that's my goal, is the stresses have to be the same. But dump, 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 dump. Okay? And on a story song, the next line could be but dump da bump da bump bump. You notice I put extra little syllables, non-stress syllables in between the stresses. Dump. See, the top one is dump, 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 dump. There's just one. Dump, 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 dump. Did you hear? Bump, dump. So, what is most important when we're telling a story is the unique details. Sometimes those unique details involve more unstressed syllables to get that word out, right? To make that word happen that you think is so interesting. So we only worry about the stresses in storytelling. The other thing that we know, and we'll talk about this later in music, is that the music is not as locked down important, right? So we can go, down a dark desert highway, darling in my hair. Hear that? Da 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 da. Go, Do you notice they're not exactly the same? But the stresses are the same. On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair. There's two stresses on each one of those lines. The smell of colitas rising up through the air. All right? They're not exactly the same. So we got ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-ba-ba-da-da. It didn't go ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. So there's one syllable missing because we're telling a story here. Also, the music isn't going to get in the way of the story. We don't want really overblown, huge, power, soaring melodies when we're telling a story, right? So we have open line rhythm when we're telling a story. So we only have to really count stresses and not the unstressed syllables in between the stresses. We don't have to count those. We can squeeze. You can have one. First we can have no. You can go bump, bump. There was nothing in between. You can go bump, bump, bump. There was one. Bump, ba, ba, bump. Two. Bump, ba-da-da, bump. Bump, ba-da-da, bump. So there was three unstressed syllables in between, right? The stresses. So you can see that when we're telling stories, because the melody isn't so locked down, we're not worried about it. Now, when we're writing a song that's emotionally driven, somewhere over the rainbow, blue birds fly. That's a very important melody. We know that melody it's actually, I think melody is more important than lyric when you're talking about emotionally driven songs. When you're talking about your feelings, you can have a soaring, powerful, emotional melody. And now this melody becomes so important that you do want to count every single syllable, stressed or unstressed, because this melody has to stay the same. Ba da 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 ba 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 da 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 ba ba da 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 da. Very important. See how important that melody is? Yesterday, da 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 da. right? So you can see that soaring, beautiful melody. I wouldn't use that melody in a story. I wouldn't say, I walked into the bar, then I walked over and sat on the bench. You see how that's kind of like, what? You get my drift? It's like it's too melodramatic for opening a story with that kind of, wild, melodramatic melody. So when we're writing from an emotional point of view, where you're going to express your emotions, the music, the melody is primary in importance, primary importance. So we do want to count every single syllable when we're talking about emotional song line rhythm. We want it to be exact because we want to preserve this beautiful emotional melody that we've created. That's, like we said, it's actually more important really than the lyric itself. Even though, of course, the lyrics are going to be, helping create the laughter or the tears or the anger or whatever it is, okay? So that's the difference between open line rhythm and closed line rhythm, right? Now, let's talk about a scansion. Scansion simply means the bounce of a line, like bump-a-dump-a-duddle-a-dum, right? That's the combination of stressed and unstressed syllables in a line. That's the scansion. So bump-a-dump-a-duddle-a-dum, that's the scansion of that line. Bump-a-dump-a-duddle-a-dum, right? Now, the lines will not scan typically the same in a verse and in the chorus. They're not going to be the same. So if my line rhythm is bump-a-dump, ba-duddle-a-dump, ba-dump, bump-a-dump, ba-duddle-a-dump, ba-dump. That's my line rhythm for the verse. It would be nice to have what? Do I hear Nina saying contrast, Rick? Yes, Nina is saying contrast. And Kyle is agreeing. So, to keep interest, again, contrasting the line rhythm of the chorus that's a pretty good idea, right? Because you have this opportunity to create contrast, so why not use it? We do want that line to keep going up, right? So if we have contrast between the verse and the chorus, we're keeping that line rhythm going up, which is what we want to do. We don't want it to level off. We do too many lines with the same line rhythm, we're going to create a sense of frustration. And I hate to say it, but maybe even boredom might set in if we do too many lines the same, right? Yeah, so if it's your goal to create frustration, then okay. Maybe we should have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 lines exactly the same line rhythm. And you've heard pop music do this. Oh, yes, you have. There are songs today on the radio where the line rhythm stays the same, which it seems like forever. They never get off of it. The Weeknd. Listen to The Weeknd. You can actually go on Spotify when this session is over and listen to some of The Weeknd songs. And you'll see he goes... The point being, now The Weeknd knows how to write songs. He knows that he's doing it on purpose. He's not an amateur just making mistakes by repeating too much. No, he wants it to repeat that much because he wants to create a sense of frustration in the listener, which he does. He creates frustration. But, the chords are changing underneath those lines. So we do have a little bit of contrast underneath that repeated melody. we'll have chords changing. So that's one way you can do it. If you decide you want to do exactly the same line rhythm over and over, okay? Another thing that we would call that also is what I call the groove factor, okay? Because in songs, we're typically saying we want to have 3 musical motives, right? Have a good, see you, Nina. Have a good appointment. May it go well. May it go well. And I'll see you a week from today, because on Friday I won't be having a lecture because me and the missus are going on a vacay. We're going on a staycay. We're going to a little cabin. It's only an hour from here, way up in the woods, all by ourselves. And it's right next to a lake where we're going to go boating by ourselves. And we're going to drink some wine. And we're going to have some adult beverages like gin and tonic on the boat. We normally drink gin and tonic, which is just tonic and lime and ice. That's what we normally do. We don't drink every day like we used to. But on a vacay, we're gonna have some fun. Gonna get a little liquored up. No telling what might happen after that. Well, getting back to the lecture here. So, the groove factor. We normally want 3, right? We normally want 3 musical motifs or motives per song. Again, contrast. And 3 seems to be a good number. In songs going on today, I mean, there can be 4, 5, 6 different, 7 different motives. To keep those youngsters engaged, we got to keep things busy and moving along and keep the contrast popping, right? Yeah. So, but in a groove song, which can be either up-tempo or a ballad, I call that a dirge. If it's a groove song in a ballad form, it's a dirge. It's like if you hear this, Mama, take his badge off of me. New Gibson. I'm loving it. Feels like, see it. Mama, take his badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. Long black clouds hanging down. Seems like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. See what I mean? I mean, it's the same. That's a groove song. We're just creating the same. It's the same thing. It's just over and over the same pattern. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Same pattern over and over. That's a groove song. It's a dirge, right? It's slow and it's sad. And because Bob Dylan doesn't change the melody between the verse and the chorus, we get deeper into the depression and the sadness because it sounds so final. We didn't change anything, so this is the final melody for the song, and you have a sense of that finality, like everything's over. Feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. And then you have your up-tempo, you know, James Brown, man. Popcorn. Yeah, so you can have that up-tempo groove, and you may not have 3 motives. You may only have 1 or 2, you know, in a song. So that's the groove factor. It's a way to write. It's fun to challenge yourself. Hey, maybe I'm going to write a groove song where I'm going to purposely just repeat over and over and over, right? Yeah, exactly. All right, so moving along now. So we have stressed and unstressed syllables, right? Now, we have bump, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. So that's 1 stress, 1, 2 stress, unstressed, and then another stress. Bump, ba-da-bump, ba-da-bump. So that's 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. So that's that one pattern. Now we also have occasionally, we want to keep in mind that we do have what we call double stress. So if I say Proud Mary, bump, bada. You hear that 2 stresses in a row? Bump, bada, Proud Mary is a double stress. You can also have ones that stand alone, like, let me see if I can find one here. Town Hall. You don't say town hall, you don't say town hall. You say town hall. Both stressed syllables. So keep in mind while you're writing, be careful if you come up on a double stress that it's going to fit in your dump to dump but dump but dump. You don't want to be going along bump but dump. You know what I mean? It's going ooh ouch. That doesn't work. So make sure if you hit a double stress that when you come back around to that line again, that you also put a double stress in that same place. So double stresses can create interesting melodies because double stresses, bump, bump, have a sense of like it's slowing down the momentum a bit. Like so you're going ba-dump, 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 dump. Hear how that it kind of slows things down a little. So if you're going dump, dump, ba-dump, dump, ba-da-bump, ba-dump, ba-dump. That bump bump really stands out, so you want to do it again. Dump, ba-dump, ba-dump, dump, ba-da-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump, right? So just be aware of the double stress when they come up, okay? So now let's go into, and this is really important, let's go into line endings, okay? Lines can end either masculine or feminine, right? They can also end in triplet and quadruplet, all right? So let's review. Bump, ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump. That's masculine. Bump, ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump. Notice that that last syllable is stressed. Okay? So that's masculine. And many, 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 many lines. It's by far the most popular style of poetry in lyric writing is the masculine ending. All right? Now, let's do the feminine. Bump, ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-da-da. Ooh. Again, bump, ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-da-da. We've got that little thing hanging up over there. A little dangler. A little dangler there. Okay? So what does that dangler do? It's doing something. It's changing your emotions. It's changing your emotions. Very good to change your emotions. Yeah. So when we have that little dangler up there, you have a sense that things are not resolved. Bump, ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump. We're done. We're resolved. That's resolved. Finished. I like it. Put a stamp on it. Stick it in the mail. It's done. All right? Bump, but dump, but dump, but da-da. You see how that it sounds like it's not done. So how do we finish a feminine ending? So let's review. Bump, but dump, but dump, but da-da. Bump, but dump, but dump, but. Kyle's going, dump. And Kyle, you're right. You're right, dude. You got it. Okay? So, a feminine ending with this unstressed syllable at the very end wants to have the next line masculine ending to resolve it, right? So, bump, but dump, but dump, da da, bump, but dump, but dump, but dump. Thank God, we resolved it. Okay, so now we have a sense of resolution. But you get what I'm getting at here. Songs are all about emotions, right? So let's just say, for emotion's sake, we don't ever do the masculine one. What if we did bump, but dump, but dump, but da-da, bump, but dump, but dump, but da-da, dump, 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 but da-da. You feel the tension really rising, surprising, you're going crazy, and you wish it would raise the dead. Da-da. You're waiting. The listener is waiting and waiting for the masculine ending to please show up. Please. So all the stress, right? Yeah. So feminine endings can do two things. Feminine endings can do two things. One, we've already said, can create tension. The other thing feminine endings can do, and this is weird, it can create humor. It can sound funny. Funny. Get it? Funny? That's a feminine ending. Funny. Funny. Honey. Yeah, funny. Like the famous song, Hello Mata, Hello Fada, here I am at Camp Granada. It is very entertaining, and they say that we'll have fun if it stops raining. All those are feminine endings, right? And it's a comedy song based on, bum bum ba da, dun 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 dun, on that waltz, bum bum ba da, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun. And again, the original composer, and I wish I could remember who it is, and if somebody knows, let me know. It might be Strauss. Strauss was famous for his waltzes. But that song was meant to be light with all those feminine endings. Back in the day when it was originally written as a classical piece, it was meant to be light. See that little throwaway last little bit? But also, it can be very heavy. It can be very heavy. Being saying and I'm praying. You never get that sense of resolve. That resolve never comes, right? And so you can use this feminine ending trick as a way to create either tension or comedy, either one, right? In the song Gone Country by, it's written by Bob McDill, one of his great songs, one of his many multitudes of great songs, sung by one of my very favorite, Alan Jackson, who I just think absolutely hung the moon. One of the greatest male vocalists in country music history, frankly. I thought he was just amazing. I really miss him on the radio. Yeah, that song has a lot of tension in that there's 4 lines that end in feminine endings, and then finally at the end, it finally resolves with a masculine ending. You know, da 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 Dallas, da 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 da. You ask us, da 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 da, and Dylan, da 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 da, fill in. Anyway, look that lyric up, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It has a lot of feminine endings, finally resolving in a masculine ending, right? Okay, so that's good to know. The other styles we have, that's single, like ba-dum. That's the stress ended that, ga-dum, and ga-da-da. That's 2 syllables. Stress, no stress. Stress, no stress, right? And then we can go da-da-da. Yesterday, da-da-da. That's triplets, right? Ba-da-da. Now, there's an interesting thing about triplets. Triplets can have a sense of, you can go ba-da-da, you can also go ba-da-da. Ba-da-da, potato has a 3, right? And you can go ba-da-da, on a name, on a thing, and a D, and a D, on a D. Wanna be, da-da-da, or da-da-da. So you have choices with the 3 where you can either have it masculine, feminine, or semi-masculine, right? Ba-da-da. That sounds like yesterday, sounds like yes is the stress, and then day. Yesterday. It sounds like there's no stress. There's 2 unstressed at the end there, isn't it? All my troubles seem so far away. Stress, da-da, far away. So that ended with a stress, far away, right? But the first one, yesterday, notice how it's leaving you dangling. All my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. I believe in yesterday. Ba-da-da. Notice how he turned yesterday, the last one, he turned it into a secondary stress. So there was a slight stress. Yesterday. He paused a little, right? Yesterday. Yesterday. I believe in yesterday. Ba-da-da. Yesterday. You can hear a little stress on the end of that one, but you don't hear it at all at the beginning. Yesterday is very, very tense. 2 unstressed syllables at the end. I believe in yesterday. Ba-da-ba. Suddenly, da-da-da. You get that, again, that same feeling of, oh, we're dangling 2 unstressed syllables. Oh my God, we got it. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da. Oh, he did it. Ba-ba-da. So that stress, unstressed, stress. Da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da. Oh, I believe in da-da-da. Why she da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. All stresses on that. But I love that opening, that da-da-da, right? Very, very cool. To create a stress and then resolve it with the masculine at the end, right? Okay. Now, what about the word complicated? Oh, da-da-da-da. Wow. 4. Ba-da-da-da. So the stress at the beginning, ba, no stress, stress again, and then no stress. Da-da-da-da. Complicated, right? So you can have 4. We're now getting into what I'm calling compound endings, right? Now, compound endings, when you have, let's say, 3 or more, I wouldn't call a but-a or a compound ending or da-da. That's not really compound, that's masculine and feminine. But we get ba-da-da or ba-da-da-da, or how about da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. You're going to sing to me. You're so into me. So I get so into me. I get crazy. You're so into me. You're so into me. Ba da 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 da. These are clusters of single same. They're usually like eighth notes. Da 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 da. Bum 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 bum. Like a machine gun. Da 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 da. Ba 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 ba. Da da da. We could call it machine gun endings. Da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. 6. Ba da 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 da. 7. See? Ba da 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 da. So bum ba dum ba da 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 da. Those are all compound endings. Once we get into these compound endings, we have choices to rhyme any one of those. Let me give you an example of a 4 one. Ba da da da. Complicated. All right? Now, we can rhyme with complicated. Complicated. So Tom and Tom is jaded. Complicated. Tom is jaded. This is what clever rhyme tricks rappers and hip hop artists are using. They're using these compound endings, and they're rhyming not just the end, but they rhyme sometimes the first part of the compound ending. Tom is jaded, complicated. Notice I'm rhyming almost the whole thing. Complicated. Tom is jaded, right? So I had when I taught at Belmont, when I had hip hop writers and rappers, they would have books, pages after pages of compound endings, compound rhyme schemes that they would just create. They would take a word like complicated and they would rhyme it 20 times, right? Confiscated. And sometimes they would do, and this is what I call syllabic contrast. So complicated is one word with 4 syllables. If I go, Tom has made it. Tom has made it. Complicated. Tom has made it. Those are 4 single syllable words rhyming with a one word with 4 syllables. That's what I call syllabic contrast. And it's a lot of fun to do when you create compound endings where, again, it's like a machine gun, ba-da-da-da. Those are all like, I'm going to say those are 16th notes, da-da-da-da. When you do that, and if it's not, it's 8th notes, right? But that's not important. It's just that machine gun, the same value. Bup, 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 bup. It's not bup, 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 ba, da, 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 bup, bup, ba, da. It's usually the same, da, 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 da. You know, it could be bup, bup, ba, da. Then you could do another one, da, 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 da. So you could vary the pattern and make one note or 2 notes longer, but you have a sense that it's clustered together, right? This is clustered together. Da 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 da. You're gonna rhyme ba 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 da, right? So ba da 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 da. You don't have to, when you're doing this, you don't have to use like complicated. You're going crazy thinking, oh, I've got to come up with another word that's 4 syllables. No, you don't have to. You can come up with 4 single syllable words, and you don't have to rhyme the whole thing. Like complicated could be con and toaded. Although it would sound better with that A. Complicated. You're related. Complicated. You're related. But I only rhyme the A, right? You're related. You're complicated. So we hear that rhyme at the end. but we didn't try to rhyme the beginning of that compound thing. But in the rap world, they try to rhyme as many of those compound ending syllables as they can, just to show how clever they are. And guess what? They are clever. They're geniuses, right? Keeping you interested with their clever rhyme schemes. Yes, yes. Even though the content usually is not clever at all, their rhyme scheme by itself is considered clever and interesting and cool, right? But their lyric content, rappers and hip hop, they don't want to be, for the most part, being clever is a sign of country or bluegrass, and they don't want to get into that cleverness, because clever is a sign of just wimpy, it's just not, it's not tough and cool, right? Yeah. So although country music thrives on clever and cute and like tricking you, all right? That's a very, very typical country attribute, right? Yeah. Okay, so moving along, we just wanted to mention this compound endings, and you'll see them now that you've heard me say this. When you hear songs, you'll hear lots of compound endings where they create a cluster of words at the end of a line, and then they'll create that same cluster on the next line, or within maybe 2 lines later, there is that same cluster again, and they're showing you how clever they are by rhyming as many syllables in that cluster as they can. All right, so we can get off of that now. I want to make sure we covered all this. Now here's an interesting little tidbit, what I call forced stressing, where you're putting a stress on the wrong syllable. What's with that? Well, this is also very popular, is to put a stress on the wrong syllable. Katy Perry has a song that's almost unrecognizable. The stress is so difficult, and it's a word that's like complicated, but that's not it. It's at any rate, I can't think of the word right now. But if you look at the Katy Perry repertoire, you'll see one of her big hits. It was on Prism. It was on that album Prism, and it's a long word in it. And she puts the stress. It's something like visionary. That's not quite it. Maybe somebody will help me with that. Look it up. It's not reactionary, but she puts the stress on the wrong syllable so hard that you almost don't recognize the word. I can look it up real quick, I'm sure, because it'll pop right up when we go online here, and we look it up. Let me see, and we get this thing here. Well, you know what? I better not, because it may interrupt my my flow here. So I don't want to mess with my computer right now. But just you'll find it if you look up the Prism album, which is I think her biggest album to date. Although she has a really good one out right now, by the way. She has this song there that's a long. I don't see anybody helping me out. Okay, that's fine. At any rate, all right. Now, moving right along with this line rhythm. Here's where we get into some real interesting territory. All right. We're going to talk about the emotion of symmetrical versus asymmetrical couplets. All right? Now, to give you an example of a symmetrical couplet, It goes bump-a-dump-a-dump away, dump-a-dump-a-dump-a. You're hearing say or fray. You're hearing the same sound. So that's a symmetrical couplet where all the stresses are placed exactly the same. The first line of the couplet and the follow-up line of the couplet, the first and second line. Most songs, not all songs, but a lot of songs are based on couplets, sets of two. And it's usually a pair of two. So here's two here and two here, making four. Two and two. Klenduda, klansuta, mata, may the power be with you. Pow. Okay, so based on couplets, there are some songs that are based on sets of three, right? Da 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 da, ba da 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 da, ba da la da 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 da. But we'll deal with that in a minute. Let's just stay with couplets because couplets are the dominant way that songwriters write. Usually they write in sets of two. So if you have a set of two lines, you have a choice. You can either have it symmetrical or asymmetrical, where one line is clearly longer or shorter than the other, right? It can be the first line is longer and the second line is shorter, or it can be the first line is shorter and the second line is longer. It can go either way, all right? Okay, so let us review this. Dump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a-dump-a say. The ear, our listener's ear, wants to hear a symmetrical couplet rhyme. That's what they want to hear. All right, now let's review an asymmetrical. Bump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a. For some reason, I don't know why, but you don't want to hear that one rhyme. So bump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a kind. That sounds natural, but it didn't rhyme. So what are we learning? Asymmetrical couplets, they don't want to rhyme, so we have to have some more couplets to get it to rhyme, right? So when you're writing an asymmetrical couplet, you're going to have to write another asymmetrical couplet to get it to rhyme. Typically, now this is, again, in a vacuum. This is in a vacuum. In the real world, things get wiggled around a bit. But in a vacuum, we need to learn this in a vacuum first, and then we can play with it later, right? So watch this. Asymmetrical couplet. Bump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a fine, gump-a-dump-a-dump-a-bling, bump-a-dump-a kind. Yes, another asymmetrical couplet. And now the second and the fourth line rhymed. Notice I wasn't concerned with the first and the third line. That's because they don't have to rhyme if we don't want them to. They can rhyme? Sure they can. Bump-a-dump-a-dump away, dump-a-dump-a fine, dump-a-dump-a-dump-a say, dump-a-dump-a kind. Yes, we can do that. All right, and we'll get into that with rhyme scheme, which is going to come up in the next lesson. We're just going to finish line rhythm today, and then we'll get into how all this works with rhyme scheme in the next session, which will be a week from today. Because Friday, I'm going to be on a lake somewhere. At 11 o'clock, I'm going to be headed for a lake. Pontoon boat rental. Brought the hand spray. Gonna spray it down. Gonna keep everything clean. When I get to the boat dock, gonna wear the old bandito mask, right? Yeah. So all that's going to happen. So I will see you a week from today. But let's finish this up. We're almost done. But this is really interesting and this is really fun for you to play with. when you're writing your song. You can play with this line rhythm and this asymmetrical couplets and symmetrical couplets, right? You can play around with this. And let me show you how you can play around. So let's go back over the symmetrical couplet. Dump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a-dump-a say. Okay? Now, what I just did created a sense of resolve. We're done, right? Bump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a-dump say. We're done. Total resolve with that asymmetrical couplet that rhymed. Now you know where I'm going with this, don't you? Yeah, you do. You know me so well. You know me so well. You know what I'm going to do. Watch this. Bump-a-dump-a-dump say, bump-a-dump-a-dump find. Surprise, right? Symmetrical couplet didn't rhyme. It didn't rhyme. Oh my God, it didn't rhyme. So I've created a surprise tension because you wanted it to rhyme, but it didn't, right? So the point being, now I'm going to have to do another bump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a-dump-a kind, right? Dump-a-dump-a-dump-a zing, dump-a-dump-a-dump-a blind, dump-a-dump-a pain, bump-a-dump-a-dump-a line, right? Again, the second and fourth line, we want to definitely rhyme, because in a set of 4, we definitely want this last one to rhyme with either one of these, right? We want it to rhyme with something. We don't want this to be dangling without a rhyme, because that really, really leaves a sense of unresolved, unless we do one particular trick, which I will tell you in the rhyme scheme section. We'll go over that, right? But for now, you see how I created tension? Now, if I have a song that's serious and I want to create tension, I can now purposely create symmetrical couplets that don't rhyme. And they get that sudden, whoa, that didn't rhyme. Oh gosh, I feel a sense of frustration. When will it rhyme? Well, then you rhyme it in the next couplet, right? So the first couplet, we don't have any rhyme, but it's symmetrical, which creates tension, okay? And then we have another line, another set of symmetrical couplets that don't rhyme, but it ends up, the second line, skip over the third, then the fourth line rhyme, right? And again, if you want to rhyme line 1 and 3, go for it. Totally cool, right? And we're going to talk about more about that when we get into rhyme. There's a reason why you might want to rhyme it or not rhyme it. There's a good reason for that. But you have to wait, my little precious, for the next session before we learn all that rigmarole. So let's talk about asymmetrical couplets. Bump-a-dump-a-dump away, bump-a-dump-a kind. Right, now we need another one. Dump-a-dump-a-dump, ling, bump-a-dump-a blind, right? What if we do this? Bump-a-dump-a-dump say, dump-a-dump-a play. Aye. That sounds off. It's like, it's really out of balance, isn't it? Wow. So, again, we had a sense of rhyme. We got the rhyme, bing, bing, but it's really off. And so you are creating tension, and you're also highlighting. Anytime you suddenly do a contrast to what they're expecting. Remember we talked about setting up expectations and either giving them what they expect or giving them a little happy surprise. And what I mean by happy is it doesn't chase them away. They don't go, oh, I hate that surprise, I'm out of here. No, we don't want that. So even if the song's serious and sad or angry, a little surprise that they like. Okay, good. So, bump a dump a dump away, dump a dump a say. Wow, that's just crazy. So it's resolved, but it's very unresolved, isn't it? So what do we do? Is there any way to fix that? Let's see. Dump a dump away, dump a say. Bump a dump a kind, dump away. Right. Well, I didn't rhyme the third one with the first one, and then I rhymed the second one with the fourth one. Right. That would be some way to kind of resolve it. Right. Yeah. And there's another way to do it, which again we will talk about when we get into rhyme scheme. That's getting into a very complicated rhyme scheme called unbalanced rhyme. But for now, we're going to close with, I just wanted you to know this trick of symmetrical couplets want to rhyme. Asymmetrical couplets do not want to rhyme, but have another set of asymmetrical couplets to finish the rhyme, right? And so when you don't do that, you're creating tension with the listener, which also creates a little interest. You kind of go, wing, they go, oh, a little surprise there, right? Now, before we are done, I want to just mention a few more things. We're almost done here. When you come to an end of a section, it might be fun, again, to create interest and to get their attention, to suddenly, and this is really, you usually hear this, doesn't have to, but you usually hear this trick either toward the end or definitely at the end, meaning the last line of a section. So let's take a verse. We might want to surprise them by suddenly changing the line rhythm at the end of a section. You can do it in the middle of a section too. You can do it anywhere you want. Your creative process is telling you, today I feel like suddenly changing the length of the third line. Well, that's fine. If it works, yeah. But typically a great place to do this is at the end. All right, watch this. Bump a dump away, dump say, bump a dump find a dunk a kind. Whoa, did you hear that? That last line I cut shorter. All the other lines are this long. Now they're shorter. This one last line. So that really that got your attention. It did rhyme, but it suddenly is an asymmetrical couplet that rhymes. So that really surprised you. So you get this sense of, so shortening a line can give you that kind of jolt of excitement, or it can even be kind of a warning, or wow, that's exciting. You get that sense. Now watch this. Bump, dump away, bump, dump, say, dump, find, dump, kind. That last line, I stretched it out longer, didn't I? And what was the emotional feeling of that? Frustration. Even finality, right? So if the song is talking about this relationship is definitely over, and you have a sense that it's final, it could be cool to stretch that last line of the verse or the chorus. These tricks I'm telling you can happen in any section you want it to. It can happen in a bridge, in a chorus, in a pre-chorus, in a verse. All the sections, this can happen, right? But when you unexpectedly stretch a line longer, there's a sense of frustration. You wanted it to end, but it didn't. You're going, it didn't end. It's really, wow. It's, whoa, okay. See what I mean? That final feel, oh yeah, that's done. Done, right? So you can manipulate, once again, your listeners by suddenly changing the last line of a section, right? Now let me tell you, you don't have to have sets of 2 throughout a whole section. I can do a set of 3 at the end, say to create a pre-chorus. So I can go bump dump dump way dump 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 say dump 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 fine dump dump kind but dump the way or the dump free but dump C the dump B. A little 3-liner, right? And you notice how the tension, the shorter the line, the more tension you create. So if they're expecting a bump, a dump, a dump, a dump, which is typical, again, in a vacuum, a line has 4 stresses. That's in a vacuum. There are 3 stress lines and there are 2 stress lines. There are even lines that have just one word. Ah, da 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 da, and the way you da 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 pulls my hair. I want to be next to you. You know, you can do just one syllable. But typically, again, in a vacuum, we're usually, when we talk about a line, we think of 4 stresses. Again, you can do it with any amount of stresses. But when you suddenly, at the end of a section especially, start shortening the lines and the rhyme is coming faster, you're creating more excitement. The shorter your lines, the more excitement, especially if they're expecting longer lines. And then being long line, short line. See how those shorter lines create tension and excitement, and it's getting ready to go into the next section. So isn't that cool? You're creating contrast and a sense of excitement before you're going in. So you're setting up the next section so nicely, aren't you? Yeah, setting it up, right? Also, in the previous example, when I did 4 and 3, that set of 3, remember we talked about usually they're couplets? So when we do a set of 3, we now have a section that's unbalanced. We have 4 and 3, which is a total of 7, right? So again, in a vacuum, uneven numbers usually create a sense of unbalance. Okay? A good thing to know. Good thing to know. Again, if you want to use these little line tricks, the line rhythm tricks, to create interest and tension and excitement moving into the next section, hey, you now know how to do it. You now know how to do it. So isn't that cool? So we have balanced sections and unbalanced sections. Unbalanced sections usually have an odd number of lines, right? Right? They don't have to, but again, you're now learning about unbalanced sections. So you could unbalance a section in several different ways, but typically it's an extra line thrown in, right? And that creates a sense of like, wow, this isn't finished. Because when you have a set of 2 and you add a 3rd line, you're thinking there's going to be this 4th line, but it never comes. But what does come is, boom, the next section, right? So this is all about setting up either resolve or setting up tension. Where are you going to do it? Maybe you want resolve at the beginning of your section, but you're going to have tension towards the end of the section so that we can't wait to get into the resolving next section, right? The resolving next section. So an unresolved ending to this verse, and now you just can't wait for that chorus to come. That's good. That's good. Again, momentum constantly climbing. Right? So these are all little tricks, right? Now, I am done today. We are finished. We have done everything we wanted to do, right? So that's my little lecture on line rhythm, and I thought it went pretty well. I thought we learned a few things, right? Yeah. So tune in. Again, I'm missing Friday. Tune in Monday at the same time, and we'll be talking about the sister of rhythm is rhyme. These two things dance together. Yeah, they do. They dance together. They need each other. So we will finish this rhythm rhyme thing on Monday, and we'll talk about rhyme scheme, and it's real interesting. Rhyme scheme has the same, if not more, clever tricks to manipulate the emotions of your listener. Even more of tricks than line rhythm does. Okay? So until next Monday, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and that your weekend is as relaxing and as fun as ours is going to be. Maybe not quite as good, but okay, that's all right. So keep her on the double nickel. See you on the flip-flop, and adios, amigos.